This should be a year of celebration. Nintendo turned 125 years old this year. That's 5/4 of a century. That's a long time. But before we come together as gamers and celebrate this milestone, I'd like to take a moment to pause and remember a franchise that Nintendo's left dormant for a decade. One that we all know and love, yet maybe you've already forgotten. The futuristic racing franchise F-Zero saw its last major game release in 2004, both in America and in Japan, and since then the series has been in hibernation. Honestly, who can blame Nintendo? The series had such a strong start, and despite attempts to build upon it, the sales just dwindled away. But regardless, let us take a moment to remember F-Zero's history as we look back, 10 years into its slumber. F-Zero came about from Nintendo's newly formed Entertainment Analysis and Development Division, that is, Nintendo EAD. Comprised of Shigeru Miyamoto's R&D 4 and members of the other three groups, EAD was given 15 months to produce the Super Nintendo's launch lineup, which included Super Mario World, Pilotwings, SimCity, and, of course, F-Zero. Directed by Kazunobu Shimizu and design led by Takaya Imamura, F-Zero was completed and finally released in America at Super Nintendo's launch, August 23, 1991. F-Zero's most significant element was its display of the Super Nintendo's Mode 7 graphics, which is actually its 8th graphical mode. It starts at 0. This graphic rendering technique allowed full tracks to be laid out beneath the racers without having to draw the racetrack one segment at a time. Outside of that, F-Zero stands out for its unique world which Nintendo had created. F-Zero takes place in the far-flung future and pits players in a mad dash through airborne tracks. F-Zero has 4 vehicles to choose from, each with their own unique racer. Blue Falcon, piloted by none other than the bounty hunter Captain Falcon, Golden Fox, piloted by Dr. Stewart, Wild Goose, piloted by rumored hitman Pico, and Fire Stingray, piloted by Samurai Goro, leader of a band of thieves and Captain Falcon's rival. The game even had a comic to help develop lore around these characters, or more specifically, Captain Falcon. The game is fairly basic as far as modes go. Players can either race in Grand Prix or practice in 7 of the game's 15 tracks. The goal of each race is to get through 5 laps without being eliminated. Starting at 30 racers, the game eliminates a set number with each lap, until the final lap in which the player must get within the top 3. Obstacles line each track, including partitions which slow the vehicle down, landmines, heavy winds, and giant magnets. Thankfully, if you get damaged, there are pit zones which can restore energy provided the players drive through them. Furthermore, with each lap, a racer can get an additional super jet boost to help them launch forward, as long as the racer finds the right time to use it. In the end, F-Zero was greatly praised for its Mode 7 graphics and intense gameplay. Although the game did not have a multiplayer mode to speak of, the game itself was quick and easy to pick up and play. The game would go on to sell over 1 million copies, and with that, a new franchise was born in the Super Nintendo. While Nintendo continually built on the Super Nintendo, it decided to develop a new handheld, and what better way to show off new hardware than a game series which had perfectly shown off the previous one. Unfortunately, that new handheld was the Virtual Boy, which released 1995 to tepid response. First announced at E3 1996, a Virtual Boy spin-off was announced for F-Zero, called G-Zero, or later, Zero Racers. In it, players would control one of 4 vehicles, Falcon, Stingray, Goose, and, I can't believe this is what it says, but Origami. With these vehicles, players would rush through tight, 3-dimensional corridors and race for first place. Whether or not the game was good, the Virtual Boy's poor sales eventually led to its cancellation, which left F-Zero fans waiting for more. With the cancellation of Zero Racer, the next iteration of F-Zero would release again on Super Nintendo, but not in the traditional way. In 1995, Nintendo and radio company St. Giga released the Satellaview add-on for the Super Famicom. This device would download games through airwaves, as well as provide live audio to play over certain games, dubbed SoundLink games. BS F-Zero Grand Prix was one of those SoundLink games, and it aired over 4 weeks from December to January 1997. Each game session had players race through familiar and not so familiar stages with brand new vehicles while voiceovers and live music played over the matches. In these races, players chose a difficulty and vehicle before being asked to race through particular tracks for the fastest time. That August, BS F-Zero Grand Prix 2 released over 2 weeks, showing those same 4 new vehicles along with a cup's worth of new tracks garnered from those broadcasts. BSF-Zero 2 was even slated to be released stateside as marked by Nintendo Power, but it never came, as the Nintendo 64 was already out to the masses, and a bigger F-Zero release was on its way. F-Zero X released in the US September 20th, 1998. Developed yet again by Nintendo EAD, the game was this time directed by Tadashi Sugiyama, who had previously acted as Mario Kart 64's art director. F-Zero X takes the gameplay established in the original and expands on it multiple times as it takes a turn to 3 dimensions. Rather than have you just have 4 racers to choose from, this game offers 30, each with their own unique vehicle to race. These new racers range from a menacing dinosaur to a walking octopus to what is clearly Mario if he had been made a drone and given very fatty mushrooms in his adventures. Gone is the elimination element from races. It is replaced by a more traditional point system akin to Mario Kart. Combat is given more emphasis too, as destroying opponents can help keep you higher in the roster. Furthermore, singular boosts per lap were replaced with continual boost power, but at the expense of the vehicle's energy. The game consists of 5 modes, 2 of which return from the original. Grand Prix and Practice return, but now the game adds Time Attack, the combat-oriented Death Race, and for the first time in the series' history, Versus Battle. Regardless of the mode chosen, the game runs at a steady, fast-paced frame rate, making the action all the more intense. The game starts with 3 cups like the original, but Joker Cup and X Cup can be unlocked. Joker Cup includes crazier levels, including one that resembles a particular Mario Kart 64 stage, while X Cup generates tracks randomly for players in EAD to race on. These randomized tracks can range from simple to outright insane in design. In fact, I'm pretty certain some of them can't be beaten. But speaking of insane in design, check out that butt rock. I mean insane in a good way there, by the way. F-Zero X was met with a solid reception in the United States, although the Nintendo 64's poor user base in Japan kept the game from even approaching its retail predecessor. Critics were concerned about the game's poor texture work and models, but others praised the game's attempt to keep a solid and fast frame rate along with the more intricate level design. Considering how certain lower frame rate games have aged over time, I'd say the trade-off was more than fair, don't you think? In developing F-Zero X, Nintendo had been preparing it, and other Nintendo 64 games, to benefit from additional game content, and the device to deliver that content would become the Nintendo 64 Disk Drive, or 64DD for short. The 64DD launched officially in Japan on December 1st, 1999. Unfortunately, the 64DD had done so poorly in Japan that the device would be discontinued in a year's time. The only expansion pack to make it would be F-Zero X Expansion Kit, which released April 21st, 2000. F-Zero X Expansion Kit adds an additional 2 cups to F-Zero X. The game also allows players to create up to 100 different tracks using an in-game editor, as well as develop their own vehicles to ride too. However, because of the 64DD's failure, it was never brought outside of Japan. While F-Zero X Expansion Kit was releasing, Nintendo was creating a new subsidiary to bring out the next title in the F-Zero franchise. ND Cube was founded in March 2000 in a collaboration between Nintendo and advertising firm Dentsu, and the developer was tasked to continue work on the F-Zero franchise. The company's first release would come on the Game Boy Advance, F-Zero Maximum Velocity, which launched alongside the handheld in June 2001. F-Zero X Maximum Velocity returns to the classic gameplay of the original F-Zero games, but it puts it into a handheld for the first time. Taking place 25 years after the previous games, a number of new racers have joined the dangerous circuit for fame and fortune. Initially, the game only has 4 vehicles: Hot Violet, Fireball, JB Crystal, and Wind Walker. Over time, you can unlock other racers, including the supposed son of Captain Falcon himself. Locations have been changed from the classic locations to new, unique ones, and the game starts with only 3 cups, but a 4th can be unlocked after completing the other 3. The game also offers a new championship mode, which allows you to race one-on-one in a special track. The game also has multiplayer if you have a few Game Boy Advances lying around, making it the first 2D-based F-Zero game to feature multiplayer in any way. Maximum Velocity received a good amount of sales and positive reception when it came out, particularly as it showed off what the Game Boy Advance could do. Despite the reception of Maximum Velocity, however, ND Cube would not be tasked with making an F-Zero game on console. Instead, ND Cube would produce the obscure futuristic racing game Tube Slider, published by NEC Inner Channel. While nobody has entirely confirmed what happened, one might believe the next title's existence is what led to Tube Slider coming out, instead of becoming the next F-Zero. In 2002, Nintendo formally announced Triforce, an arcade board which would easily be portable to GameCube. This would lead to projects like Star Fox Assault from Namco Bandai's Ace team, but more importantly, Nintendo would work with Sega's Amusement Vision to create F-Zero GX, which released August 25th, 2003. GX is arguably the most ambitious game in the F-Zero franchise, with more tracks, modes, and racers than any game before it. The game has a full-blown story mode following Captain Falcon as he tries to thwart Black Shadow's plans and win the F-Zero Grand Prix along the way. This story mode not only introduces more characters, but it also helps flesh out the characters, even if a little, which certainly helps with the world's lore. Besides the story mode, the game features 4 cups to race on, each with 5 intense racetracks. As if F-Zero GX wasn't ambitious enough, the game comes complete with a full character roster breakdown, including character bios, theme songs, and even little unlockable videos for each character. Heck, after each cup, there's an interview with the character you're playing as. This game is really fleshed out.
I'd love to ride in that kind of machine just once in my life.
F-Zero GX may have been one of the biggest console games in the F-Zero franchise, but it is also the first F-Zero game on arcades. F-Zero and Sega released F-Zero AX alongside GX to share new racers, tracks, and customizable vehicles for use in between games. It seems Sega had at least some say in what the characters were too. I mean, who else would make a character similar to Crazy Taxi of all things in it? Between an arcade experience and a content-dense game like none before, GX and AX together look to be the pinnacle of the F-Zero franchise. It is a shame then that the game failed to meet expectations. Despite the positive critical and fan reception, the game did not sell as well as Nintendo anticipated. But there was still another plan for F-Zero in the works, even as AX and GX released. After F-Zero GX released, Nintendo decided to take the series in a direction it had taken Kirby to improve its image: release an anime. This anime, dubbed F-Zero GP Legend Stateside, was developed by Ashi Productions and ran from 2003 through 2004 across 2 seasons. The series stars newcomer Rick Wheeler, a racer and detective from 200 years in the past, who was brought back from cryogenic sleep to help stop the forces of evil from winning F-Zero and completing their nefarious plans. The anime was brought to America via 4Kids Entertainment, but despite its attempts to latch onto the market, the series only aired 15 translated episodes. With the anime dead in America, it's no surprise that when an anime-based game released in 2004, attention was not on it. F-Zero GP Legend released in the United States in September 2004. This is the first F-Zero game developed by small developer Suzak, whose first game with Nintendo starred NHK mascot Domokun in a number of mini-games. F-Zero GP Legend has a number of new modes when compared to its Game Boy Advance predecessor. The game has a story mode with 8 different storylines to follow, from Rick Wheeler to Captain Falcon to Samurai Goro. And when it comes to racing in Grand Prix mode, the game offers 34 different racers, 4 coming from the anime itself. GP Legend also introduces Zero Test, in which players go through a series of short challenges with a limited time frame. Overall, GP Legend feels very much like the Super Nintendo original, although it uses more intense environments and uses F-Zero X boost system. Even so, the biggest flaw this game had was its connection with the poorly received anime, and as a result, the game did very poorly in the United States. The game's poor sales, combined with the cancellation of the anime, resulted in GP Legend's sequel remaining Japan only. F-Zero Climax released in Japan October 2004, and it is the last mainline F-Zero game released since. Climax is a direct sequel to GP Legend, also developed by Suzak. The game drops the story mode, but instead offers survival mode, during which players are tasked with completing a series of challenges to unlock character bios and episode synopses in the anime. What is more unique, though, is that the game comes with a track editor, allowing up to 30 tracks to be stored or saved in password form for easy sharing. The game released, the game was received with a shrug, and that's it. The series ended. And that's it. F-Zero's done. Hasn't been a game since. Probably won't ever be one. Nintendo, let's let it go and be forgotten. What about Nintendo Land? Oh, yeah, I guess Nintendo hasn't totally forgotten about F-Zero. F-Zero as a franchise has been in hibernation ever since, though that doesn't mean Nintendo has entirely forgotten it. Captain Falcon and the F-Zero franchise are still heavily represented in the Super Smash Bros. Franchise. More specifically though, Nintendo brought F-Zero to the Wii U as one of many games in Nintendo Land. In Captain Falcon's Twister Race, players hold the Wii U gamepad vertically and then steer the ship as it progresses along the highway under a time limit while also dodging bumpers, fallen cars, and of course, mines. This November, Nintendo will be releasing the first of 2 DLC sets for Mario Kart 8, and in it, not only is the Blue Falcon a vehicle, but there is surely an F-Zero track on it. So I guess F-Zero is kinda still coming? In a way? In an E3 2013 IGN interview with Shigeru Miyamoto, he had this to say of F-Zero. I certainly understand that people want a new F-Zero game. I think where I struggle is that I don't really have a good idea for what's new that we could bring to F-Zero that would really turn it into a great game again. Certainly I can see how people looking at Mario Kart 8 could see, through the anti-gravity, a connection to F-Zero. But I don't know, at this point, what direction we could go with the new F-Zero. It's tough. Obviously, in the past, we've tried to work with other companies, where we've let them develop games for us in franchises like Star Fox and F-Zero, but the more we think about it, the more we prefer to be able to create those games internally, on our own. Miyamoto has since announced a Wii U Star Fox on the way. Could F-Zero be close by? So Nintendo hasn't really forgotten about F-Zero, but it seems that they're having trouble trying to figure out how to convey it to the masses again. It has been a decade, so a lot has changed in the market. But I think Nintendo could bring it back, either through a full reboot, bring it to the eShop, have another developer develop it like Next Level Games or Monster Games. They've both proven to be very good at rebooting franchises. Either way, as long as Nintendo pushes that fast, futuristic, intense racing that the series is known for, I don't think they're going to have trouble getting people back to play it. But until then, at least we have a good solid lineup of games to play together in remembrance of the F-Zero franchise. So get going, get boost power, and get racing for the captain. Hey everyone, Alex here. Thanks a lot for watching the F-Zero retrospective. It was a lot of work to make, but it was also a lot of fun. What are your favorite F-Zero memories? Let us know in the comments below. If you're a fan of retrospectives, we made one for Kirby about 2 years ago. You can check it out in the link above. If you like Nintendo games and you want to see more videos like this one, I recommend checking out Nintendo War Report TV. That channel is already full of lots of retrospectives, including a look through Nintendo's old gamepads, and a look through Rare's Nintendo 64 output. There's also other videos, including exclusive gameplay footage of upcoming Nintendo games. If you want to see more videos made by us, check out Third Rate Minion. There you'll see not only the videos made here, but you'll also see a number of other oddball videos out there. So what are you doing here? Get clicking or go gaming!